What's up? What's happening, y'all? What's going
All
on?
right. All right, cool. So this is the first question. They posted this. It's my dog, Maximus Rex. He asked this question right here. He says, at the end of American Pimp, you stated that the life of a pimp was a lonely one.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that?
Well, the reason why I said that is because generally in other games, like the D game or you are involved in gang banging, there's always a community of dudes that's all around you. But
Mm,
in the pimp game, on the most part, it's just you and the females that's with you. And so the lonely part comes in that you have some friends that you might talk to in passing and stuff, and a couple little partners and stuff. But the majority of the time you're spending is with the women that's with you in the game. So when I was saying that it's a lonely one, I was saying that it's not like I'm always having a bunch of my partners around me because I might be going to one city, they might be going to another one. I might be going to one state, they might be going to another one. We don't follow each other around necessarily like that. So the lonely part was I was talking about the camaraderie of other men around you consistently and constantly, like you might have in a dope game. The dope game is always a bunch of dudes around you because you got to have people that protect you or people that you serve and are serving for you and things of that nature. The gang banging is always a bunch of dudes around you because you guys are all gang banging. But in the pimp game, there's not a bunch of dudes. It's always you and women. And that's why I was talking about the pimp game as a lonely
mm, okay. And then someone asked, they says, how did how did you beat that case? Are you able to go into that?
Yes. Was that from one of the questions that were posed or right now?
Yeah, that was post prior to that.
Okay. When I first had the first case I got was a state case, right?
Mm-hmm.
They gave me living off the earnings of a prostitute, living with a prostitute, and some other charges, right? So the young girl that was involved in that case came to my preliminary hearing and told them, rebutted everything they had said because they were trumping those charges up. So when she came to my preliminary hearing and told them I didn't do anything, all the things that they said that I did, and she stood up in the preliminary and said that, their case came crushing down. That's how I beat the state case. Now, when I beat the state case, I got out. And 2 months later, the feds picked up my case and charged me with a federal offense called the Mann Act and money laundering. So the reason why I was able to beat that life sentence is because their star witness came on the stand and said that he didn't do any of those things that you guys claim that he did.
Mm.
And all this is in court records.
Oh wow, yeah, them court records be deep.
Yeah.
And they says how transition from pimping to the squaring up, was that easy for you? Like an easy transition?
Is that a before question or a now question?
That was before.
Or okay, you guys out there that have questions, put it on my Facebook page so that he can read them off to you because this chat is tripping. So put the questions on my Facebook page and he'll read them. So of course it was a hard transition because you're primary in the game to be able to build a nest egg of money so that you can do something else with it. So when I didn't have income coming in and I was transitioning, of course it was a struggle, financial struggle, probably more than anything. But I had made up my mind that I wasn't going to go back because there was nothing that I could do that I hadn't already done. I felt like I would be going backwards. But of course it was extremely hard, transition. A lot of my friends that was in the joint with me when I came home, this is something that I used. When I was in the joint and when I knew I was going to get out, I told myself, I said, Andre, for the next 3 years, because I had 3 years federal probation, for the next 3 years, you're going to be in the worst financial situation that you've ever been in your life. The worst, right? And so I had prepared myself to already be in a bad situation. So when I got out in the streets and those bad situations were coming, I had already prepared myself that I was going to be in these bad situations. And I would tell some of my friends, if you don't think like that, when that bad situation comes, you're going to go get some money in those streets. But I already prepared myself for the next 3 years. You're going to have the worst financial 3 years that you've ever had in your life. And I have prepared myself to be in the worst financial situation. That's how I was able to do it.
That's crazy. So I just got a question from somebody on Facebook. They said, what is the most valuable lesson you learned from your dad?
The most valuable lesson I learned from my dad is to be a man at whatever the cost. My father told me before he made his transition, he says, you know, son, I was very proud of you about what you achieved in the game. I was proud of you about the success that you had. He said that was wonderful. But what most made me proud of you was when you was facing that life sentence. He said it was like you putting your head in the mouth of the lion. When at the circus, when the man puts his head in the mouth of the lion, he said, not only did you put your head in the life of the lion, you had the audacity to pull at his teeth. He said that is what most made me proud about you. And in being a man underneath principles, understanding principles and integrity was the most important thing I learned from my father. And I live to this day. Okay.
Now, just to expound on that, I know there's a question right here that says, what does this say? They say one of the most profound things you said is before you're a pimp, you have to be a man. Can you a little expand on that a little bit?
Because my father, when I was growing up, he would, constantly impress to me that you have to be a man before you anything else. And what he was saying to me was that, in life, there's a lot of people that have different vices to give them success, different things that might put a certain type of light on them. He was expressing to me, but in all that, you might not have a dollar bill. You might not have a fancy car. All you might have is manhood. And that's the most important thing you need. Because if a woman is attracted to you for any of those other things, somebody might have more of that she's attracted to, and then you're going to miss out on the woman. But if a woman is attracted to you because the man that you are, then you won't have the woman no matter if you don't have a dollar bill. So you got to be a man before you anything. Was from me growing up as a little boy being taught that. Listen, being a man, have some integrity. Don't make no excuses for your mistakes, but fess up to your mistakes. So all these were lessons and guidelines about manhood. Let me just say this before we go to the next stage. One of the worst things that I would hate to hear from my dad is when he would say to me, that's unmanly. That would kill me. I would hate that. For him to say to me that something was unmanly, because the way he represented manhood, he made being unmanly be the worst thing a person could be. He made it be worse than a killer, worse than anything. He made being less than a man worse than anything in the world. So for him to utter those words to me, that's some unmanly stuff you're doing, Andre. Oh, that was the worst. That was like, God dang. So because I grew up like that, I was always offensively making sure that I was guarding. That's why I released that video one time that said guard the man. I was always so, up on not doing anything that's going to make me less than a man. Because of that you kept putting to me when I was younger. Well, that's less than manly. So if there was a situation that I was in recently with the Rosebud situation, and and people was wondering why you didn't respond to them, because all I could hear anytime a situation happens, I'm seasoned in it now, but in the back of my mind, I can't make a move that's unmanly, because all I can hear is my daddy in my mind saying, boy, that was less than a man. Boy, that ain't no manly stuff. You know what I'm saying? So I didn't want to do anything that would take away the glory of manhood. I could never to this day can't live with the thought of my dad knowing that I'm doing something that's less than a man. That's where all that comes from. And that's why I made the video, Guard the Man.
All right. So to keep that going just for a little bit, that's okay. Because, of course, that was kind of what we were talking about last night. One of the questions someone asked is, what are the characteristics that are most important to a real man? And what can we do to hone or refine those characteristics?
You got to be willing to die. I mean, literally, you have to be willing to die. First, you have to understand the value of manhood. You have to understand it in such a degree that you're willing to walk away from somebody that you love, a woman that you love, a situation that you love. This is the kind of love I'm talking about. You have to be willing to walk away from any situation on principle of manhood. You got to be willing to die for it. And once you come to the level that you are willing to die before you compromise being a man, doing anything underhanded, doing anything deceitful, lying, before you do any of those things that you're willing to die, once you understand that, once you have that inside of you, that the man just glows. He becomes a king, almost a god, little g, you know, because nobody is that gung-ho over manhood that somebody is saying to you, man, I'm going to die right now before I violate these principles. No woman is big enough for me to lie to her. You ain't big enough to take my manhood. You're that type of fire, that type of dedication to the man. And I live that every day. You know? And once you are willing to give everything up, everything to maintain your manhood, you've arrived. You got a long way to go, because there's going to be something that comes along that's going to take your manhood if you ain't willing to die for it.
Okay. And then just last on the manhood thing, how can a man stay strong when everything around him is falling apart?
On principle. See, I used to tell my little nephew D is probably one of the closest people, well, not probably, in the world to me, as far as, you know, the game side and just period, right? And I used to explain to him that me being who I am is not convenient. It's not convenient to be no man. It's inconveniencing a lot of times because of the sacrifices I have to make to protect him. It's an inconveniencing thing to have to be who I am. But I do it because it's the right thing to do. Under whatever the situation, whatever the cost, whatever the price, because I just believe the man is just that powerful. And when you live that, you give off that energy. Some people say, Dre is cocky. It's not that I'm cocky. I just believe in the value of the man to such a degree that it might come off like that. All right.
All right. Everybody keep asking about manhood. So I got just general question. Right. I'm just looking around, noticing that others who are teachers of the game are also talking about manhood now. Also, is that why do you think that trend has started? Or
I think the trend started, or let's just say, because all that bullshit that they was talking about, it runs out. It run out. Right? But the man don't never run out. So you can go all the way around the world, but you're going to come back to what I said in American Pimp, to what my father taught me growing up all the years of my life. You got to be a man. You see? So I'm happy that these brothers are starting to talk about manhood. It's ecstatic to me. I'm glad that they're finally realized that other shit has an expiration date to it. Right? That there's nothing more important, especially to the black male, than manhood. Remember, I was talking to you yesterday, and we were talking about a situation, just to give you a perfect illustration. We're talking about people say that being a man is providing for your family. And I told you that, who told you that? Right. I said, who told you that? I said, I'm not saying that necessarily it's not, but I'm saying, do you think that there's a person who provides for their family that's not a man? If it is true that that's the only thing that classifies you as being a man, providing for your family, well, what about the dudes that provide for their family that are nothing like a man? What about that? So I told you that this is what happens through indoctrination. What this country does, it's like it gives you an idea of what manhood is, right? And you grow up with this idea, and so because you grow up with this idea, a part of your mind stops growing because you've concluded it to be true. All I do is ask a question: Why is this true? Like I asked you, who told you that? Mm-hmm. Well, I just, exactly. So I continue to challenge the indoctrination of what white supremacy continues to teach the young black man of what manhood is, right? Mm-hmm. I challenge it because I ask them, who told you that? Where did you get this information from? Because if you concluded in your mind that that's what manhood is, a whole area and section of your brain is dead. It will not grow. You will not develop thought or reason in that area of your mind because you concluded that the indoctrination is true. And I call it a lie. A man is much bigger than that. That's a part of it. But that doesn't entail the whole man.
All right. So what this is from Lorenzo Boogie. He says, what characteristics of manhood attracts a woman the most?
Well, I can't say, I think I heard somebody say the other day, because I said something about confidence, that, oh man, you're trying to talk like, because I think Rosebud has some type of, he has a male confidence course. And I said something about confidence. And I guess somebody was saying, oh, Dre's trying to be like Rosebud. That got to be a square dude. Because that's like, you know your ABCs? The first letter is A. That is not no deep revelation that the average pimp know the first thing you're going to have to do is have some confidence. That's not a revelation of sorts. You know what I'm saying? The average dude on the street that's been in the game going to say you got to have confidence to ask a girl for some money.
Right.
To believe that she's supposed to give it to you. Somebody say, well, Dre trying to be like, come on, man, that's really amateur stuff. That's just like the beginning letter A, the beginning number 1. That ain't no deep shit. Excuse my expression, but let me just say it like that. Because somebody talks about that shit been said by white folks. You got to have confidence. You know what I'm saying? But I go into the detail on what that means to me, what confidence means to me. So confidence is part of it, right? But you only derive that confidence from valuing who you are as a man. You know what I'm saying? Because you got some confident idiots. Have you ever seen a confident idiot? I've seen a bunch of confident idiots. Just confidently an idiot. You know what I'm saying? So one of those things are confidence, but mostly it is falling in love with who you are as a man. Once you fall in love with you as a man, it's like my wife. We've been married 18 years now this year. I used to tell her and tell people, I said, listen, I'm very happy that you are benefited by the shit that I do. But I don't do that for you. Right. I love you more than anything. But who I am, I'm not that way because of you. Do you understand? Because a lot of dudes want to try to make a female believe that they are the way they are because of them. Well, the female becomes your God then. It's acting to a bride when you tell her or express to her that whoever is around me is going to get the same man. I'm not this way because of you. You didn't produce this greatness in me. I'm this way, period, whether you hear or not. I'm not going to be underhanded. I'm not going to lie to whoever is around me. That is appealing to a woman. Because what you do, say a woman is with you and you happen to go out with your partners, right? And a woman says, her partner said, girl, aren't you worried about Andre going out? Girl, that man ain't tripping off. No, I ain't worried about him. He ain't being who he is because of me. The man is a man of principle. What he ain't gonna do nothing to violate his principle. Forget about what me. It's the principles that he's living his life by, which makes me confident in the man that he is. He's out there doing it for me, because if he's doing it for me, he's gonna fail.
So they're asking in here, I got a Tyron Slack. He says, what made you the sharpest in the game? I guess.
Well, let me say, that for me to answer the question makes me appear extremely arrogant. There's a lot of sharp dudes in the game, a lot. But what I was able to bring new to the game, was intellectual curiosity, street knowledge, and spirituality. Now, I've talked about this before, right? So normally when you meet a dude, he could be scholastically brilliant, formally educated, right? Then another kind of guy could have a theology degree and he could be spiritually educated. And then you find somebody on the street that has street knowledge and he's street educated. Well, what I was able to bring to the game is all three forms of those informations. So now when I deal with a situation, I'm pulling from every one of these sources of information. Now, a street dude that's just talking to me, he ain't gonna have, he's outmatched, outstyled, and outclassed because all you know is what the street done taught you. But I'm gonna bring in this scholastic information and I'm gonna bring in this spiritual information, this combustible, all three, right? So it's the amount of information that makes me, or the information I have, so valid, because it's just not one source of information. Even when I talk with my videos, I might cover something about some Hebrew Israelites, right? Then I might say something intellectually stimulating. And then in another video, I'll talk about some game. Who does that?
Right.
That is probably what makes me a little different from the average cat.
Okay. And Young Takeover Super Producer, he says, what did you enjoy the most about the lifestyle of the business besides money?
What did I enjoy about a lifestyle and business? What is
He's saying, I guess the question is, when you were in the game, when you were heavy in the game, what did you enjoy the most about the lifestyle that your success brought besides the money itself?
Just the freedom. You know, what I enjoyed was that I was able to use knowledge in my brain to bring about the things that I had achieved. That was stimulating to me, to be able to teach a female to go inside of some heavy hitters, some billionaires and multimillionaires, and I could send them with my knowledge and my education and send them into a room where those guys that are considered powerful people in the world, you know, and go in there and seduce those men. That was a real stimulating to me because it made me feel like I was smarter than them. You know, that's probably why I carry the air the air I have about me now, because I already know that I don't outsmarted the best of what they consider to be their brightest by sending. It wasn't even me in there. It was understudies that I sent after them. So that makes you feel that is probably the most liberating thing, to be able to see your work in action, to be able to see your gifts in action. You see your troopers into war and to see them to go and conquer and to possess with the information you gave them. That's some powerful, stimulating stuff right there. So I would say that was that was the best thing I enjoyed.
All right. So the King 65, he says, it's kind of a few questions in one, but he says, since you've been in the game since late 80s through the 90s, and your father was in the game from the late 60s probably to the 80s, how do you feel the game has changed through those decades?
Because the most important thing now in the game is money, not the value of the man. There was such an admiration for each other in the game that no other game had. The dope game didn't have it. The gang-banging game surely didn't have it. There was such an admiration amongst gentlemen of leisure that I could go to another city, right? And even if I'm messed up, I'll see somebody in the game and say my brother went to jail. He'll give me a room. I'll ride with him and he'll feed me and, you know, and probably help try to get my bride out the game. And this is not an isolated situation. This always happened. There was such a respect for the man back then. You might not have no hoe. You could be broke. But the other dude in the game would look at you as a king. And the respect level that you would get from one another was beautiful. So when I was having that conversation with Rosebud and I'm explaining to him, look, man, whatever your dislikes of the situation is, one thing you will never get me to do is to disrespect the beauty of the game.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to never disrespect the man, the beauty of the game, out of respect and regard to the thing that I love that birthed me. You know what I'm saying? So what happens is people grow up and they become infiltrated with all this hate and envy, and they lose their way. Because of course you go through the temptations of life that try to pull you away from class and poise and sophistication and common camaraderie. You know what I'm saying? But it is your job to remember the foundings of what make this thing beautiful. The admiration for one another as gentlemen and as men. What other kind of man do you know could have a woman with him for 10 years, and another man knock him for the woman that he loved, and the man was able to release her, have a drink with the guy, and say, man, go pimp, man. This is an exceptional kind of individual. Mm-hmm. So when I see the lack of that exceptionalism in an individual that participated in this game, is heartbreaking to me. Never will I reduce myself to be anything other than the game and what the game taught me to be, a man that's poised, full of class and camaraderie for the next brother.
So I guess, so the next question is, how do you feel that the players in the game, how do you feel like they're stronger now, or are they weaker than what they were while you were in the game?
Well, I don't. That stronger is subjective.
Mm-hmm.
You know, stronger is subjective. I just don't think that they've studied the craft. I don't think that they're into being a Renaissance man. They're not into reading. See, how I came up with my father, everybody was jockeying to be the sharpest, to be the smartest thinker. What have you read lately, man? Man, have you read that Kilhall Gabron or such and such and such and such? You know, we were Renaissance men, continuing to develop the character of the inside of the person. Now today, everything is exterior. In my father's time and how I grew up, everything was interior, the building of the man inside. Now you show money, you show your gift, and all these tools that you have, and that's supposed to classify you as something that's great. But we used to always say tricks got bigger tools than any pimps will ever have. So it's not the tools. If you keep teaching your broad that the most important thing is the tools that you have, you're setting yourself up to be knocked by a trick.
Mm-hmm. All right. So Mula Musa, he says, what is your advice that you can give guys who are squares and want to know how to approach and obtain women for sex or a relationship?
Be true to thyself. Primary intent, right? What's your primary intent? People know I talk about this often, right? There's a lot of guys that come to me and say, man, if the broad just would have been this. Anytime a person that's professing himself to be a man comes to me telling me what a broad is doing, I automatically shut that down because he's taking value away from himself, right? So once you be true to thyself, understanding the value of self is the best way to approach a woman. You know, a lot of men are afraid of rejection. I just recently a video about that, of a bride saying no and all those things, right? But when I did a show last year, I explained about that everything breaks down into mathematical percentages, right? If you talk to 100 women in a day or 100 women in a week, then the percentages in your favor is at least 10% of them you about to catch. The percentages say so, right? So if you are operating by percentages, which you should, then you know that if 10 broads reject you, you feel like it's a rejection. I feel like it's just a weeding away process to get to the 10% that I need to get at. That's going to like me, right? So one of the videos I said, but you got to like who like you. So it's a weeding out process. You got to hurry up and get past them 90% because you're about to get that 10%. That 10% about to mess with you. You know what I'm saying? So the best way you do it is to understand that can't nobody reject you. You eating out the process. See how you keep the power with yourself when you think that way? The bride ain't big enough to reject me. She's a part of the 90%. I got to reject her, get her out the way. Hurry up and pass it on up.
Mm-hmm.
You know? I hope that kind of helped him a little bit.
Right. Now, Sheed M, he says, are pimps only born or can they be made?
I've heard this a zillion times where people say pimps are born and all that shit. Anybody could be made. Anybody. I could take anybody and set before me. If you give them, let me give you a perfect illustration. For the people who say that pimps are born and not made, well, then are you then saying that hoes are born and not made? Mm-hmm. Because any bride that comes to me, I got to make them. Mm-hmm. She could have been doing anything in her life before. But this game is so powerful that it has the ability to shift her to this over here, to the understanding of this. So as well as the game can influence a woman, so shall it and can influence a man. Mm-hmm. I've had a whole bunch of partners that were selling dope, but when I laced them with this game, they stopped dope altogether and started in this ism. Mm-hmm. You know, everybody comes from something. Everybody just didn't start out pimping. Maybe some people started out at 16 or whatever. Everybody just didn't start out pimping. Mm-hmm. Shoot, before I got into the game, I worked at Nordstrom's, Neiman Marcus. I worked as a data processing for Nordstrom's and sales. I did a whole bunch of things before I got into the game. Mm-hmm. You understand? Okay. Yeah. So I don't subscribe to the idea that pimps are born because you're saying that's all they could be. Well, then how do we categorize Malcolm X? Red. He was a pimp. Well, was he born to be a pimp or was he born to be what he became? A statesman, a leader of his people. See, I won't let nobody kind of put me in a box that pimps are born. So I'm born to be just a pimp and I'm not downgrading it because I embraced who I was. But it don't stop there. I take that part of the game and then elevate it to something else. So I don't subscribe to it for that reason. Go ahead. Okay.
So I got a question for myself. What is game? Can you define game?
My fathers used to say, all game is knowledge with a flair. This is knowledge. You know the Hebrew text, the Bible, some people call it. It says that God has some hidden knowledge that He saved for His own people. I believe the game is that hidden knowledge. I believe the game is that hidden knowledge. Because, you know, you ain't going to meet too many people with what I have entirely. Some parts of what I have, but it's just knowledge. That's what we call it the game, but all it is knowledge.
Okay. All right. So, Tree Folly, he says, what's the key to staying motivated and focused after achieving success in the game?
Then that's subjective because what do you consider success in the game to be? Because my idea of success in the game might be different than your idea. So it's a subjective question after you achieve success in the game. It's subjective. So I don't know what success in the game might not be monetarily entirely to me. It might have some other mitigating circumstances that makes me feel that I'm successful in the game. Because remember, my dad said you got to be a man first. So I think that I achieved that success when I achieved being a man, and the others were just icing on the cake. But the man, I'll never denigrate him in any capacity. Mm-hmm. So maybe he's talking about monetary success. I don't know.
All right. He has another question. He says, how do you keep a woman motivated that's been there for several years?
How do I keep her motivated to stay in the game?
Or I don't know. I don't know if he's talking about in the game, but I'm just gonna.
Well, let me say this. Whatever I did in the game, we had some attainable goals we wanted to achieve. The goal was the motivation. Right? In any corporate job that you have an objective of what you want to achieve. That keeps you motivated. So if you don't have any objective, then not only is the bride not going to be motivated, you ain't going to be motivated after a while. So it's always important to have, whatever you're doing, to have some type of objective, some type of attainable goal that you want to achieve. And you say, okay, well, we're going to play for this. We're going to play. We want to have a business here. We want to have this house. We want to have everybody being, having 20, 30,000 in the bank or whatever. If you don't have any attainable goals, then it's easy for somebody to not be motivated after 5 and 6 and 7 years. What have we achieved? What have we done? What are we working towards? Because that would be the question to me. So if you haven't said that this is what we're working for, we're in the game for a means. When I was in the game, I said I want to be in the game, get me a nest egg of money, take that nest egg of money, and go legitimize myself and do something else. So there was a purpose that I had, right? I wasn't just in it just to be trying to show everybody I was in the game. There was an objective and a purpose, something I was trying to reach, and we were trying to reach together. That kept us motivated to get to the goal.
All right. So, Think Guy, Young Takeover Super Producer, he asks us another question. He says, how many women can one man have on his team at once and be able to handle business properly without any problems?
Well, hey, that's up to the individual. Fillmore Slim had about 20, 21 holes, and Joe Kale had about 20, 21, 22 holes, and I guess the most I've ever had was 8. I guess if you have them in different places, and my dad would always say this to me. He was like, I couldn't do what you did because I had everybody living in one home. I had a mansion and up in Forest Hill, and I had everybody living in one home. I like it like that. But other guys don't operate like that. They have things spread out. They have things spread out. People in different apartments, and every broad is in their own place, and I understand why. So I would imagine in other cities. So if a dude have broads spread out over different cities, and I imagine that he can handle that. It's just up to the individual. So he can have as many as he wants, as long as he can handle it.
All right. So Jenroy Hilton. He says, what are the best books you know of to sharpen your mind?
When I ever have a client, I always tell them to go read James Allen, As a Man Thinketh. Always. And then I tell them to go read one of my favorite books that used to be from my dad's favorite author. It's called Siddhartha by Herman Hesse. Og Mandino is a great writer. So I always like reading great minds and great thinkers. Norman Vincent Peale, all these great thinkers. So I've always been into great thinkers, So I would definitely say go get As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. It's a very, very powerful book. Very, very deep, powerful book.
And just for everybody who's watching, that book's actually free on Amazon. So it's no excuse. You can download it right now on Amazon for free, right to your phone.
That's right. My son did it too.
Yeah. So I have Ivory Walking by Faith Taylor. She says, being a single mother of 4 males, what would you say would be the best characteristics to instill in them while they're still young?
Wow, Ivory. Bless you, baby. Let me tell you this, honey. It is imperative that there is some type of male mentor, uncle. They need to have as much male influence in their life as possible. You can just do so much. And bless God, all you single mothers out there that are trying the best that you can. But let me caution you, because a lot of you often say that I don't need no man because you've been hurt and scorned by some dudes that might not have been, all the way up the par to you. But let me just caution you with this. Don't ever allow your male children hear you say that on a continual basis, because what you do is you prepare them not to respond to authority, to male authority. It's very important that they are responding to male authority. Give you a perfect illustration. And I've said this before, but it bears being repeating. When these little white kids, they go to school, You know who they go study? They go study at these Ivy League universities. They go study their forefathers. You know why? It's easy because they have respect and honor, and they pay homage to the knowledge of their forefathers. Because 9 times out of 10, they respect their own fathers. So our little young black males growing up don't even have an experience with their own fathers. So they're not curious nor pay homage to their forefathers, to the black forefathers of knowledge and information. It is imperative that you never say you don't need no man. Don't say that to them, because they'll grow up saying the same thing. So when if a mentor like myself try to come into their life, they'll play a maverick role and then say, I don't need you, bro. I can do this by myself. And so now you have young black children out there all by themselves. And it's not designed for us to be out there by ourselves. We're designed to be, that old saying that it takes a village. It's designed for us to be unified and have male authority and headship in their life to teach them, to impart to them, but they won't have respect. They won't respect them, and as a matter of fact, they'll have blatant disrespect, and they won't listen to nobody because you've taught them. I'm not saying you in general, but if a person continues to say, I don't need no man, they ain't no good, this, that, and the other, and he grows up with that understanding that you taught him that, then he's going to have that same feeling towards any male authority in his life. So I would suggest don't say that, and also make sure that he has some type of male headship, some type of programming that a man is around that you feel that you can trust, that can impart to him some man skills so that he can respect and reverence male authority, because he's going to be a man in this world. And if you're not careful, if you don't give him that, he'll be out there by himself like a lot of our young black men are. All right.
All right. So I got a question here from Z. Lambert. He says, Mr. Taylor, what do you suggest of a man that has a criminal background and cannot get a job because of the background? He also says that you are an inspiration with your advice, and he's very thankful to have come across your YouTube, and may God bless you.
I appreciate you for that. God bless you back. Well, I am that man that have had that same experience. And, I think sometimes when situations like that happen, it gives you an opportunity to start thinking about creating your own job, creating your own type of job. When I used to go over to the SHIELD program out here in LA and offer my time at the SHIELD program for brothers coming home from prison trying to get readjusted into the world again, I would tell them that if you allow them people to put in your mind that you are a criminal and ex-con and all this kind of stuff, then you're playing on their playing field. I would often caution them that you can't think that way. What one must do is change the playing field. And you change the playing field by building a sense of credibility, right? So, for instance, what I did, when I got out of the feds, I realized that from American Pimp, I looked like, from what the media tried to portray me as the notorious Pimp Gorgeous Trey. So I understood automatically that there was going to have to be some things that transpire that would build credibility, because credibility is a very important thing, right? So what I start doing is involving myself with church and start teaching at some treatment centers, and I start doing some things that build some type of redemptive credibility. Because I remember when Rick Ross got out of jail, and we called me, and I was telling him exactly what I did. I said, man, you have to develop some type of redemptive story, because the redemptive story sells better than anything. I'm sorry, I'm not
trying to cut you off. I'm sorry. But you're talking about the real Rick Ross, right? And just make sure everybody knows. You're talking about Freeway Rick Ross, right? Yeah. So cool. The redemptive story crosses racial lines, gender lines, religious lines, and everybody loves the story of redemption.
So I told him it's important that you go into the community and start planting some seeds of redemption so that people could see. Not hear what you say at your mouth, but see the redemptive work that you're doing and start with your community. And you will be surprised that will turn into other things, right? You might be able to start your own mentoring business or anything, but you got to start somewhere with the redemptive story, right? And you have to show it. You can't say it. So when I got out of the game, many people were saying a whole bunch of things because they see me going in the direction. But what I was building is credibility. So when I did the church stuff, I started speaking at churches. I started teaching at treatment centers. And I was, when somebody came with a situation, I was able to show some evidence that I had done some things that was redeeming some redeemable qualities. So that gave me access to other things. That's why I went on the Montel Williams show. So that was something else that I used as some redemptive qualities. So that led me on into, after speaking and lecturing at universities. And that led me on the TBN and all that. But it started from the mindset of building credibility. You have to build your credibility. There's nothing more important when you get out of the joint than building credibility. And you do that by starting in your community. You might not get no money. I didn't get no money right away. It took me a process to start making money. But I was building something that was more important than money, which was a credible name. Because my name was taken away from me in the media, so I had to give it and take it back, and I did that by building credibility. That's how you do that.
Okay. All right. There's a lot of questions in here now. Jay Collins, he says, can you go into detail about how you got Miss Vogue when you were in the game?
That's my client. He know how I got Miss Vogue. He said, Jay Collins. That's going in. That would be going into a lot, and we don't have a lot of time. Of course, we'll go a little over time, but Jimmy, I'll have to talk to you about that later, unless somebody else comes up with the same question.
All right.
Because he gets me all the time. He's a client, but go ahead.
All right. So Demetrius Howard, he says, before you got into the game, when did you decide you were going to have $1 million business? Was this something you wrote out like a business plan?
Well, my aunt would always say, whatever you resist will persist. And so I really didn't have no desire of going into the game. Growing up as a child, it really wasn't really something that I aspired to do. As a matter of fact, my father never encouraged the game for me to go in that direction. He wanted me to become a criminal attorney. My father did. So I wasn't inspiring to be in the game. That's why I did other things and worked and, but because I was gifted with conversation and gifted with the information that I had learned growing up from my father. What I resisted persisted. And when a situation came about where I got into a financial crisis after a failed marriage, and that was devastating, man, I just went pimping, man. I just did what was natural to me, I guess. I just did what I felt like. Sometimes a crisis makes you pull things out of you to create some new opportunities, and that's what happened. It was a crisis that pushed me in that direction, and so I didn't have to have $1 million plan because the $1 million plan was already living inside of me.
Right. Okay. All right. Michael Macro Sadaka, he says, what used to be your biggest weakness?
My biggest weakness is, I said this in Master of the Game. When I was younger, I was I got married when I was 18 years old. My wife was 30. I met her when I was 17. And so because I was a youngster, I had insecurities because she had been with grown men. So I was insecure about, I said in the Master of the Game that, guys don't talk about it when they, to their partners when they're young. They worried about if whoever she was with before was bigger than him, his thing was bigger, or did he have sex better? And, all of them them things that you doubt about yourself because I'm a teenager and I'm dealing with a grown 30-year-old woman. That was a real, and that was a challenge for me to overcome those thoughts. But, I sure couldn't have been no pimp had I not dealt with that. Being that women have sex with men on an everyday basis when you're in the game. But that was going through those earlier stages was developing into the man was probably the hardest thing to overcome. The insecurities about my age. My age didn't match up to the information that I had. You know what I'm saying? And so, me worrying about, people thinking about my age and stuff at the time was probably a weakness to me. That's what I would say.
Okay. So, Yarmis Porter, he says, do you ever think about getting back into the game?
No. I told you when I got out the joint, I had every opportunity. I was more famous when I got out the joint than when I went in. Because when I got out the joint, they had showed American Pimp everywhere, and I was hella famous. So I've said this before. For me to go back into something that I'd already conquered would make me a coward. I already conquered that. The only reason you go back because you're a coward. You're scared to do anything else. You're scared to conquering new territory and new ground, so you go back to something that's familiar with you because you're a coward to take that information that you used to conquer in that life to go conquer something else. And a coward, I am not. I've heard some people say, Dre got out the game because of the feds and the police and all that. That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I say most stuff right now that probably get them people worried than what I was doing in the game. The stuff I talk about right now empowers a generation of men, empowers a generation of people. Much less what I was doing in the game. No, that wasn't my reason for getting out the game. I was ready to go conquer something else. As evidence of everything that I've accomplished since I've been out the game. The evidence is what I have accomplished.
Okay. What do you think about the seduction and pickup artist community? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's deceptive and deceitful.
And
I have a problem with any male that wants to use or say something just to get sex from a woman. I think that's less than a man. If I would ever do anything like that, that's something so looked down upon from my father that I don't even know if I could even reconcile. I could reconcile to him. To do something and solely base every movement and action upon getting some sex from a woman, that makes you a woman. No denigration to a woman, but I'm saying as a man, it is denigrating for a man to become anything other than who he is. So for the primary intent to be, I say anything, do anything only to get sex from you, I think that's a coward. And I think that it's a snake. Because if you do it to a woman, you do it to your friend. Because all you're saying is that all things are on the table for me to get what I want. I don't believe that all things are on the table for me to get what I want. I live by principles and integrity. And in the game, if a dude represented that in the game, if a dude did that in the game, he couldn't be in the game. You wouldn't, you wouldn't be no pimp. That, every move you're making is to get some sex. You know what I'm saying? That sounds like a trick to me. Yeah.
I feel you. What do you think your most rewarding accomplishment is? Or has been thus far?
My 18 years with the wife, by far. My 18 years with the wife. Proving, not doing it because I was trying to prove to anybody, but for us to link together from me coming out the game, meeting her as a square, telling her that I wouldn't even mess with you if I was in the game, on the run from the police, but telling her sometimes God creates situations that allow a person to prove themselves through. And for me to have to tell her that, some hoes most of them hoes wouldn't stay down with me for these 3 years in the joint. But if you do, if you stay committed to me and down to me and be there for me while I'm in this prison, then you surely are the one. And she did the whole 3 years. I'd only met my wife 2 months before I went to prison, to jail. 2 months she only knew me. And she moved everywhere the Fed sent me, from when they caught me in Vegas, they shipped me back. I mean, when they caught me in San Diego, they shipped me to Las Vegas. She moved from San Diego up to Vegas with me. When I got sentenced, they moved me from Las Vegas to Tucson, Arizona. She moved from Las Vegas and went out there to Phoenix to be with me. When they shipped me from Tucson and shipped me over to Victorville, she moved from there and moved to California to be with me. By far, the greatest accomplishment is that wife of mine, Dove.
Mm. And so there's a question in here. I'm not sure who wrote the question. I'm trying to search for it, but they said, "What have you learned from your wife? What is the greatest lesson you learned from your wife?"
Ooh, there's not one. There's so many.
Mm-hmm.
I learned. It's really well. Let me just say that it's quite easy. I just learned by observing her through the years that there has to be a God. I don't want to make it corny, but let me just explain it to you. My expectations of women are incredibly high because I've had some phenomenal women that were with me in life that were willing to do anything for me. A bunch of them, a bunch of dedicated, awesome women. And to observe the consistency of her all these years, giving me a kidney when I had kidney failure, almost about to die, willing to go underneath the knife and even jeopardize her own life, because when you go into surgery, it's possible, to give me her own kidney for me to live, to stay down for me for 3 years when I was in the feds, and just to be with me and believe in me all these many years. I learned what a woman's love is to her man. Not that I didn't have it before, but the consistency of the 18 years is the thing that speaks volumes to me. You know, her consistently in and out, continuing to show up. I think God didn't forget about me for me standing and being the man that I am, because he rewarded me with a woman like her. That's my reward. No matter what I do in my life, it doesn't really matter to me. The reward is her. It's true, hands down. She's a reward.
Word. Tony Lewis says, "Can you speak on the blessings that come to a man by being a man to his woman and family?"
Well, I just expressed that. I expressed what happens. I express, being able to build an empire with somebody. I share about the game. I share about so many things, and I try to share a little bit about my life after the game with Dove. And there's nothing that compares with it. I love the game. The game was wonderful. I come from the game. My mom was from the game. My dad was from the game. My dad even said to me, I was so happy that my dad and my wife was able to spend some time together, and to know each other. Because my dad was so important to me, for him to be able to know her. And he said to me, even all the women I had, I've never known anybody like Dove. One time he told her, he said, I was in jail in Victorville. He said, let's go to the movie. He told me, Dove told him, if my man is in jail, I'm in jail too. He said, I ain't never seen nothing like it.
Wow.
I don't want to get mushy and stuff, but that's my baby. And that's my reward from God, from being the man that I am. And there's not a million women that she's awesome. She is. Right. Let me just say it like this. I'm sorry. She is fucking awesome. All right? She's a goddamn truth.
I can dig that. How do you know when it's time to, from a Squares point of view, how do you know when it's time to get out the game and get married?
Let me share this story with you guys. This is, and I'm glad you asked me that, and you guys that's that's in the room and everything, really listen to what I'm saying to you, because this is something that happened to me recently, right? I was at the gym last week, and I was, doing some pull-ups, and a lady kept looking at me, an older lady, and I didn't really, people look all the time, and And so ultimately, maybe 10 minutes later, she came over and she said to me, "Is your name Andre?" And I thought it was like a Facebook friend or something. I said, "Yes, my name is Andre." And she said, "Taylor?" I said, "Yes." She said, "I knew your father." I said, "Oh, yeah?" She said, "I knew Mom Myrtle also." Now, the reason why this was so incredible to me is because no one knows Mom Myrtle. Mom Myrtle was my dad's grandmother, because my dad's mom died when he was 2. So his grandmother, Mom Myrtle, raised him. So that was like his mom. And I never even got a chance to meet Mom Myrtle. But she said she knew Mom Myrtle, and I was like, "What the hell?" I said, "What is your name?" And she said, "My name is Gloria." And when she said her name was Gloria, I promise you, I had tears in my eyes. I was ready to start crying right then, because many years before then, maybe 40 years before then, my dad had met a woman named Gloria that he loved, and he was in the game. And everybody was tripping because my dad wasn't himself, and he was going through some things. Even my uncle was saying, "Mel, what is wrong with you?" Because he fell in love with this woman, Gloria. I only seen her 3 times when I was younger, and for her to recognize me all these years later. And he would always tell the story about Gloria. And the game he was wrestling with the game, but he loved her. And I always told him, I said, "Dad, you made a mistake. As much as I admire you, much as I love you, you made a mistake. You had your chance to get out the game right then, and you didn't take it." And when they broke up back then, 40 years ago, he never seen her again. Never seen her. But he would always have her picture to the day he transitioned up on his fireplace. Only her picture out of all the women that he was with. He would have her picture hanging up there. Gloria's picture. Right? So you can imagine how much I was impacted when she said, "Gloria, she's like a folklore in our family." I was like a little kid again. I said, "Gloria." I was about to cry, man. I was like, "My dad loved you." She didn't even know how much he loved her, because my dad would never show that. He would never. So I told Gloria, "You are the reason why I have this woman right here. Had I not seen my father go through that, and him talk about her all those years to me," I said, "Dad, you never seen her again?" He said, "I never seen her again, son." And when I seen her last week, man, this just happened last week, I was like, "My dad, this is the weirdest thing that ever happened to me." I even called my brother and told him, I said, "Dad, you must be looking down right now." It shook me up, you guys, man. It blew me away, because it's a love story. Because of that happened to my dad, man, I knew the time. Because my dad died alone. He was a man in the end, but he died alone. And he didn't have to, if he would have made the right choice. His wrong choice helped me make the right choice.
Yeah. Dang, that's deep. All right, so we're going a little over.
A little bit more. Come on.
Okay. All right. So you posted. I don't know if you can answer this. Generally, Hilton, he says, you posted a video about confidence in dealing with women. What are your best pointers for obtaining great everlasting confidence by tomorrow?
Loving yourself. Love yourself more than you love her. When you look in the mirror, like yourself more than you like her. When you say how beautiful she is, tell yourself how handsome you are. When you say what she has to offer, tell yourself what you have to offer. Never denigrate yourself for a woman. Never. Never. Under no circumstances. Because I guarantee you, there's about 500 million at least out of 8 billion in the world that you're going to have access to. 500 million. If you don't get that one, it's 500 million. You never have to feel you lost out on anybody. Somebody gonna like you, but you got to like you first.
So, do you think that a lot of men put women on a pedestal? Do you think that's like super common thing nowadays?
Well, they've been indoctrinated to do it. They've been indoctrinated. And single mothers will a lot of times tell their sons, well, she's nice and sweet, and you got to do this for a woman and do this for a woman.
Mm-hmm.
But but the father will tell him, son, you have to be careful for this kind of woman. You got to be careful when you see this, and you can never jeopardize this. And you can never not do. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
So of course, the society has emasculated men in America.
Mm-hmm.
How to make you and me feel like it's a bad thing for me to be a man.
Mm-hmm.
But don't really no woman want no man that she can control. She might play with that for a little while. I know because I'm successful with women.
Mm-hmm.
And I am a man's man. But don't no woman want no man she can control and tell what to do. And she don't want that. She'll play with it for a little while. It might be entertaining. But in her DNA, she's made to not like that. She's made to not like that because she's a natural conqueror. Naturally. And if you show weakness, she will devour you.
Mm. Mm. All right, I got a question. What do you think about Instagram models? And do you think that Instagram models are they the new hoes?
No, I don't think about Instagram models at all. I understand that we live in a perverse society, and a society that is driven by celebrity.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That the most important thing is being recognized and being noticed and being a celebrity. So of course, if you live in a society that 100 times, a million times a day continually promote to individuals why you are not qualified, why you're not beautiful enough, and if they're continually promoting that to our young girls, then of course they're going to try to prove that they are beautiful enough. So all what you see out there is for them to get attention, right? Everything is driven by attention. I want you to see me. I'm beautiful. I'm qualified because I want some attention, because I want to be famous. So everything is built around being famous, being seen. That's what the society has come to. Mm-hmm. If you see me, you could fool a lot of people. There's a lot of people in places of positions right now of power that shouldn't be there, but they're there because they're visible. Mm-hmm. Their visibility makes them feel like they're powerful. People often ask, man, you should be having way more views than you have. And I say, well, you know what? The things I talk about is like speaking to people, putting clothes on people that don't fit. Mm-hmm. I'm making you uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. People will talk about things that make people feel comfortable because they speak clothes that fit people. When I talk, mm-hmm. I'm going to speak clothes that don't fit you. You're going to be squirming in your seat like, damn, nigga, I don't, who do you think he is? You think you all that and all that. It ain't mm-hmm. designed for everybody to like what I'm saying. If you happen to, then great. But I'm not worried about numbers. Numbers mm-hmm. has never been anything that I'm intrigued by. As it's good as some brothers catch on, wonderful. If they don't, wonderful. I'm already cool with what I am. I'm already cool with where I am. Mm-hmm. So no, I don't think they're hoes, and I just think that they're poor babies is playing from attention. Poor babies. Mm-hmm. I don't think your mind.
All right. Jay Collins, he says, while in the game, did you talk about God amongst your peers and the women you were around at the time? And if so, how receptive were they?
Well, you have to understand that, of course, if it's my woman, she's going to be receptive to anything that I'm saying because I first lived something in front of her to make her feel comfortable enough to trust me. I didn't come bearing gifts. I came bearing action, right? So by the time a woman is with me, she knows that I'm a man of action. I'm going to act before I talk, right? Mm-hmm. So if I'm sharing with her how I got my information and she's intrigued by the amount of information that I have, of course she's going to be receptive to the way I got it. So if I'm sharing with her that, yes, I took some spiritual information, some formal education, reading, and some street knowledge, and I put all that together, of course she's going to be receptive to that. You can't just get this part and not get this part. You have to get everything in order to understand the information that I'm giving you. Of course. Mm-hmm. And I would talk to my peers about some, well, not all of them, but some of them. the guys in the game have this habit of talking about the pimp god, and I sure hate when they say it. The pimp god, this, the pimp god. It's just chat talk, it's just chat talk. But because I had some foundations in spiritual experiences before I start participating in the game, that never left me. So that always was a part of who I am to this day.
All right. VL, he asked this question a few times. I missed it. I'm sorry for that. He says, what are 3 major elements of the self that you believe a man must master within himself before anything else in life?
Okay.
And yeah.
No, go ahead.
And he says, in conjunction, he says, do you think that these real exceptional, and he put exceptional in quotation marks, do you think that these real exceptional men still exist, and will they be revived if they don't exist?
Okay, the first part of that, what are the 3 what?
He says, what are the 3 major elements of thyself that you believe a man must master within himself before anything else?
Okay, when anybody starts putting numbers to things, I have a hard time with that, because then I would have to ask them, who told you there were 3?
Mm-hmm.
Where did you get that from? What made you feel that they were 3 major elements? What if there was 15? What if what if there was 25? So I can't narrow down the 3 major, because there might be 10 major.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And what's the other part of this question?
He says, do you feel like these real exceptional men?
Yes, I do. If the information, there's a saying when my dad made his transition, we had a saying that when an elder dies, a library is burnt. That's an old African proverb.
Mm-hmm.
A library is burnt. So the only way that those exceptional men exist is by the information being passed down, right? Mm-hmm. So, for instance, me and you had a conversation yesterday about Christianity and about, the thought process of what white supremacy taught us through Christianity. Mm-hmm. So when we accept what was given to us, then of course that area of your mind is dormant because you've just accepted it to be true. But when you go research, then you become enlightened and you begin to challenge that indoctrination that was given to you 400 years ago through the slave trade, right? So I want to be reconnected back to the information and the knowledge that comes from out of great Africa. I believe that all religion, and I'm just going to another place here, all religion comes from Africa, right? And I believe that the things that were created back then through the pyramids and some of the technologies and the things that we did as people of Africa, the mind that it took during the slave trade was erased from us, right? So whatever original thought we had from our ancestors was taken when we decided to accept through the indoctrination of white supremacy the things that they gave us. Mm-hmm. Right? So in order for those exceptional people to come about, we have to then reattach our first minds and not our second minds. The second minds is what you've been indoctrinated to believe, right? But what were you believing before the indoctrination? Yeah, what was your culture? How did you think? Why did you think that way? So that area is dormant in your mind until you begin to go do research and study to get that original first thought or that original first culture. Because if you don't get that, then all you will have is an indoctrination, that something that was passed down to you that really wasn't yours. Mm-hmm. So that when you read the Bible, when you read and you have told somebody that you can only have one wife. I'm just using this as an example. Mm-hmm. But then when you go back to that original thought and you say, well, wait a minute. Most of the patriarchs that are talked about in the Bible today, they had more than one wife. So are you saying that God is going to kill me today and that he ain't going to kill them? Well, he accepted it back then. Well, whatever he accepted, is he going to kill me today? Wow. And for something that he allowed back then? But when you go to your original thought and you begin to understand the culture, then things can be brought into an understanding. But you can't go to an original thought because that original thought, that original culture is blocked from you because that area of your mind is dormant because you've accepted white supremacy to be the norm. You ain't got any reason to even think about something different. So that area of your brain is dead, right? So you need to be reconnected back to original thought, original culture, so that that area of your mind becomes alive again and you can think outside of that indoctrinated box that was taught you or taught you. That's what makes those exceptional people come back.
So General Hilton, he's asking some pretty good questions. He says, I don't know if you can consider yourself Christian, Hebrew, or Israelite, but if that identity ever conflicts with what you consider a man to be, and if it has, what would you pick? Would you pick your manhood or your spirituality?
Oh.
Are you still there?
You there?
Yeah, I'm there.
Okay, we got blocked for a minute. So now what was you saying? Your things totally stopped. I couldn't hear you.
Oh, okay. All right. General Hilton, he says, I don't know if you consider yourself Christian, Hebrew, or Israelite, but if that identity ever conflicts with what you consider a man to be, and if it does, what are you going to choose? Are you going to choose manhood or your spirituality?
Okay, well, let me break down what I consider spirituality to be, right? The scripture says to love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself, your brother as yourself. I practice that every day. I practice that every single day. And that's manhood. I'm willing to die today for those fundamental principles that I believe in. I love God with all my heart, mind, soul, and strength, and I live my life with a God conscience. I know that He's looking at me. I'm not about to be underhanded to nobody. I'm not about to lie to no broad. I'm not about to lie to no dude. I'm not about to do anything that makes me in any capacity underhanded. Never have in the game. All these years in the game, no one, no woman, nobody can say that I was underhanded, deceitful in any capacity, even all those women that I had. That's why I was able to make master of the game and get women that hadn't been with me for 10 years and 8 years and have them come back and talk about what I taught them without any malice. Why is that? Because I represented that man that I try to teach others, right? How many of you can go get women in your past to come validate anything about you? How many? But I compiled women from my past while I was married to come speak on the things that I taught them in a convincing manner, right? So there's nothing, the fundamentals of what I believe is that. So as far it's just like dealing with a brother of mine that has an issue with me, right? I'm going to live in love towards him to the best of my ability. And the only way that I'm going to do anything outside of that is only to protect myself. But I will never be offensive. I'm not going on the offense to hurt anybody. My brother, it won't happen. My brother is an individual that I hold in high regard. No matter how petty and little he is, I will hold him in high regard. That don't mean I'm going to mess with him. I'm going to try to give him some information to help him get up out of this situation. I do. Okay, let me go into something else. I do believe that everybody, one of our people, should be given an opportunity to also grab hold of those fundamentals, right? I don't believe all of us is going to make it. I believe some of us are so far gone with white supremacy and their indoctrination that they have been filled with so much hate for themselves. That's why it's easy for them to hate someone that looks like them. I don't believe that those people should be around us. I believe there's going to come a time that there's going to be a separation. Even the scripture says to separate the sheep from the goat. It happened in time coming from Kemet all the way into the promised land. There were many of us that were killed and slain along the way that did not want to conform to those two ideas of love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and your brother as yourself. You know, they didn't want to conform to that, and they couldn't be a part of what we were doing because they would create division. So I'm not against, you know, there being some type of division and putting the spotlight on some guys that don't mean nothing to us as a whole but harm, because they've been so filled with hatred and white supremacy, have taught them to hate themselves so bad that when we try to bring them the message, that they deny it and spur it. Well, we can't deal with them kind of people. They just as bad as white folks that enslaved us, as far as I'm concerned.
All right, so I want to get into the master of the game for a minute.
Okay, so look, I'm going to about 8:30. It's got about 3, 4, 5 minutes, so come on.
All right, so this question, I guess someone who is potentially interested in your service. He says, no disrespect, but why is your time so expensive for a consultation? And he says, I understand that you have authentic game and there are others, but why is it so high?
I think it's really a bargain. If you compare my consultation fees to some high-powered attorneys, some high-powered individuals out there that also life coach, my prices are very competitive. You know, it's just that our people have a problem with knowledge. I tell this all the time. I said, and a lot of times I bring up white folks because those are the examples that are in front of a lot of these dudes out there, right? So they want to go to an Ivy League university, they're gonna go pay the $50,000 a year, $200,000 in 4 years, because they're going to get the information. You know why? Because they've elevated the information higher than anything, because they know knowledge helps them keep running the world, right? So our people will put value on some Jordans or some jeans or something like that, and they willing to pay $150 for that. But if I come and say, now look, bro, to get some of this information, it's going to cost you $150 for the hour, right? They take offense to that because they act as if I'm supposed to give something for free that cost me everything to get. You ain't going to learn nothing if you get it for free. Nobody values anything when they get it for free. You only value something that you got to pay for, especially within our, because we're misers when it comes down to buying knowledge. Misers, because we always, see, that's that idea of growing up without understanding the value of certain things. We don't see the value of knowledge the same. We see the value of things more than the value. We see the value of buying things instead of gaining knowledge. Now, I don't have no white folks don't say that. All my clients, businessmen or wherever, they never say that. They never say, man, that's too much money. Because they understand that the information that I've given them might last them a lifetime for that little $150. When dudes go buy some Jordans for that, that might last 2-3 months. So I don't take any offense to that. I understand where we are as a people. But there are white folks out there by the hundreds or thousands that give seminars that are $2,300 for 3 days and all kind of things all over the country every day. There's white dudes that listen to me right now and listen to a lot of our other guys, take my information, go and get a seminar, teach on it, and charge $2,300 for the whole seminar for each person to come.
This is true.
All the time. A new book comes out, white folks lying around the corner. A new shoes come out, black folks lying around the corner. Come on, man, with all that.
All right, so I only asked you that question because I know that you did decide to give everyone who's watching a discount on your product, the Master of the Game.
No, I didn't get. I'm not a Master of the Game on Nothing But Pimpin' Memoirs. The reason why. I've never discounted Nothing But Pimpin' Memoirs. Never. And probably will never. If a person can't afford it, then what can I do? Because I believe it's the greatest work that I have to date. It is the greatest work that I have. But I decided that I would take $50 off and at least offer it to your audience for $249 instead of the $300 to $199, because I've never discounted it before, right? But for your audience that participated, I'll discount it. If they want it, they get it. If they don't, they don't, because it's already selling. You know, it already sells. You know, if people got to bet on themselves. People got to bet on themselves. They got to learn to bet on themselves. These white folks, these Jews, all these people are wearing us out because they keep betting on themselves, gaining knowledge, gaining information. I told you when these people go to this Ivy League university, they go to study their forefathers. And it costs them, go look it up, $50,000 a year. Are they crying? And you crying over $250, $300, or $150 for information that them white folks pay me to come give them? They don't even have the information in those Ivy League universities that I have. Y'all see me at these colleges teaching. But these white folks understand and recognize knowledge. One thing about them, if it's something they don't know about some knowledge, they'll pay you to get it. Because they understand that knowledge has kept them in power. But my people, they think I'm doing them a disservice. Bet on yourself, man. I know I keep hearing there's a whole bunch of messages still coming in.
Yeah, I guess if they purchased it, wouldn't you say that they would be able to take the information that you provided and make more than the cost of the product?
Of course, because it's something that you can listen to over and over and over again. Like I said, I heard Rosebud say, and I've mentioned him a couple of times because I know a lot of people wanted me to talk on the issue that he and I had or whatever, that people are saying this, that, and the other. Listen, I don't have to speak down on his product. Never have I. I never spoke down and said his stuff don't do this. And so I'm not that kind of man. I'm just not that kind of man. I wish him the best in all his endeavors. I'm happy that a brother can get out the game and start utilizing something after the game and help some brothers with whatever he's doing, right? I want all these brothers to, find something to do. The transition is hard. So I'm not mad at him. But so when brothers come talking about, oh, his stuff ain't nothing and his stuff all that, that's really child's play to me. I'm really the man that I say that I am, So when I say that Nothing But Pimpin' Memoirs is my best work to date, then it is. Because it goes into, I cover some things that I've covered in some videos, but not in detail. Right. I go into detail about how I got the information, how I used the information when I was in the game, when I was dealing with holes getting knocked, when I was dealing with niggas dudes trying to kill me, when I was dealing with every situation that a lot of dudes deal with. This is not just about pimping. The information I got in Nothing But Pimpin' Memoirs. Remember, memoirs are excerpts, a story of my life. It's not teaching you how to pimp. It's giving you information that you can use in whatever life you in, and it will benefit you. I'm going to tell you the truth. I've had one client, that called me and said that, because remember, I don't have to lie to you, that called me and said that wasn't what he was looking for. He didn't give the audio book back, and I said, you're the only person that felt that way. You know what I did for him? I said, I tell you what, I'll give you an hour consultation. And then later on, when he really listened to it and got into it, he said, man, I was tripping. I was really tripping. Because some of the information people got to grow to. Some of the information you might not get, all of it you might not get in the first listen for the hour and 30 minutes. You put that on the shelf, and then you come back to it as you continue to grow, then you're going to understand it. It's like, just say it's like from A to Z, right? The information is coming from an area of Z. So a person's just coming into their lives or to whatever situation at A. I'm not giving them necessarily all the way from A up into Z. I'm giving them from a master's perspective. And requiring them to bring their whole mind to grow to the level of understanding what I'm saying. right? Giving you something that makes you stretch your mind, make you have to grow, that challenges you in your manhood. It ain't supposed to just listen to it and you feel like you got everything. You listen to it and be challenged by it and be checked by it and grow. And when you hear it again next year, you grow another notch. And when you hear it again, you continue to grow. Because I'm giving the information from a master's point of view. I'm not giving it A, B, C. I'm giving it from Z. And if you don't want it like that, it ain't for you.
Okay. All right. I think we should just end it right there.